Hi everyone, I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple. Today we have a special guest for you. He's a family man, an educator, and importantly, he and his wife has achieved financial independence by the age of 37. Yes, Matthew, thank you for coming on to our show. So maybe you can share with our audience, your background so that people know who you are.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to join John and Fran here, really to discuss a bit about financial independence and also really to take us through the journey that brought us here. Hopefully we can all learn a little bit and hopefully that it can also inspire you to start your own journey. I just turned 37 this year. I'm married, 2 kids, they're 5 and 2, and although still holding on to a normal kind of 9-to-5 job, but really thinking about transitioning to something else, and hopefully that will come true in the next 2 to 3 years.
Matthew, I understand you're in the education line. Can you share a bit more about your career, maybe for the last 10 to 15 years?
Yeah. So I've actually spent about 12 or 13 years teaching at a polytechnic, and so with a couple of job rotations, I'm now currently in the IT department. We really started out this journey about 12-13 years ago. That was when my wife and I seriously started talking about getting married, and as we were starting to talk about getting married, the idea of having kids came up, and my wife actually brought up the idea of one day eventually becoming a single income household, right? So in order to spend more time with the kids. So of course, I think the intention was very good, and the real question was really how to do it, right? So we conjured up a really simple plan as to trying to save aggressively over the next 12-13 years, and hoping to really build a nest egg that could provide some yield that would really mitigate the loss of one income. So and fast forward 12-13 years, that's where we are today, and
Wow, 12-13 years, so you're saying that you actually had this plan even while I guess you guys were just approaching into your career, right, after you finished your studies.
Yeah.
So what was the motivator to get into that single income family, and then being able to be there for your kids?
Yeah.
I understand they're quite young now, right, 2 and 5. What was the main driving force behind that?
So actually, it all started off really wanting, with my wife wanting to be a hands-on parent. So she wanted to really stay at home, inculcate good values with the kids. But it also has a little bit of a Christian genesis, right? Where we believe that we should take the responsibility of discipling our own children, teaching them the ways of Christ as they grow up. And this is something that we thought couldn't be outsourced. So that's actually why we were thinking of one day having her stay home and really being a single income household. We've never really been very intelligent or savvy investors or planners, but the only way we knew how to do it was really to just save over the years and hope that we can kind of accumulate some baseline amount. And I think that's what has thankfully happened over the last 12 or 13 years.
Let's talk about FIRE, Matthew. Can you share with our audience what was your FIRE journey like?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because we really didn't know about FIRE when we first started out. I mentioned we only wanted to work towards being a single income household. But FIRE really came about maybe 2 or 3 years into the journey when I started reading about this strange person in the US. His name is Mr. Money Mustache. So P&E is a very interesting character, right? He advocates for sustainable living, advocates for really a frugal lifestyle, really minimalist and functional. He also has 1 or 2 children, I think. So that really cuts away the myth that FIRE is not for people with children. From there, I think I started reading about various blogs, a couple in Canada, a couple in China, and they also kind of pursue the same goal. And then the main goal is really to somehow leave their jobs after 10-12 years of working. And then I realized that my wife and I actually, we're kind of doing the same thing, a bit of different goals, right? But the methodology is kind of the same. So we just kind of continued on our journey, and then that whole single income thing really morphed into this idea of FIRE, they kind of converge. Yeah. So yeah, we're not quite there yet, but I think certainly we're working on it, and I think we've made good progress in the last decade or so.
Excellent. You are not the only couple with kids that we know of that actually discovered FIRE by accident, right? So a lot of it is attributed to your saving method, wanting to know more about personal finance, investing. So I do realize that a lot of people in this part of the world, we kind of discover FIRE by chance, right? And then somehow after we learn more, that, hey, this is what I'm doing, and then it's like I continue on the path. And one of the things that I know you have been to quite a few podcasts by other podcasters, and one of the things that I caught is you talk about saving aggressively.
Sure.
Can you share more about that?
So actually, saving is super important. I think it's really the fundamental keystone of building wealth over time. And often we read on the internet that you should save 10-15% of your income, and if you do that over a certain number of years, by the time you are 60 or 65, you might accumulate $1 million or whatever, right? Now, if you take that to a bit more extreme, and you say, if I save 35, 40, 50% of my income over a number of years, then obviously that rate of wealth accumulation will be much higher, right? So I think that's really important. And also the most critical thing is that it's one area of finance that you can actually control. So you can say that, I can be very determined and I want to save a certain percentage, right? And I can do that, as opposed to things like, I want to achieve a very super high income. I may not be able to achieve that even if I was very capable. So I think very important. I think if I were trying to do it again, I would also focus on really saving aggressively and cutting back on my expenses, especially in the early years when I don't have that many commitments, kids, wedding, house, and all these things.
So when it comes to saving, right, where do you draw the balance? Because aggressive saving is aggressive saving, being frugal is being frugal, but of course there's certain things that are important to you and you might not want to compromise that, right? Especially you have kids, 2 kids, and there are certain things like education for your kids, I'm sure, which you don't want to compromise. Yeah. So how do you draw the balance in saving money as well as, managing that? Yeah.
So I think saving money is great, right? Helps you to build wealth, but you really want to strike a balance in terms of not being overly frugal and miserly and really cutting back on everything. Often I use an example that Warren Buffett brings up. Right? He says it's great to get money and compound it over time, but it's also important to bring your kids to Disneyland, And he says that really meaning that you cannot tell your kids that, if we just delay this Disneyland trip for 20 years, then we can go for 3 weeks instead of 1 week. That doesn't really make sense. So the important thing is to really spend on the things that you value. So for example, bringing your kids to Disneyland is important, right? And they'll be happy and that's nice. So you should spend money on that, right? So the real difference is, if you take that approach to everything, then you spend on everything, then no money left, right? But certainly, while trying to save and having some sort of a priority list in terms of spending on the things that are important and really just delaying the things that are not so important, then I think that's really important, and that's the way to go. Yeah, particularly in the early years, because once the wealth is accumulated and it sort of has a life of its own, it spins off a certain amount every year, and then you can kind of loosen up a bit on the spending, and that's part of what we realize.
And it gets easier.
It does get easier as well, because it's also muscle memory, right? As you start to save, it becomes kind of second nature to you. So we've been thankful that it's kind of worked out, and we do find that sometimes we have to remind ourselves, that whatever we think is important, we should spend on, and whatever we can cut back on, we can cut back on, and that's how we strike the balance.
Excellent.
And really, it's different for every couple and every family as well. Some families might prioritize, enrichment classes for the kids. Then please go ahead and spend on that. But then also remember that you might have to cut back on other things if those are your choices.
Besides saving aggressively, what else helped you along your FIRE journey for you and your wife?
Yeah, so of course, saving is super important. But once you start accumulating a bucket of cash, important to really start the investing journey. Now, investing really is a difficult thing. Very often there are 1,001 instruments you can go into. There's all sorts of noise. But I think importantly, for my wife and I, we really believe in businesses, right? So shareholding in businesses via equities is really our choice, right? Right now we own about 10, 11 businesses. These are publicly traded companies, and we believe that over time these businesses will continue to grow their profits, so we can kind of ride along the wave and really benefit from the compounding effect. But I think for the general person, staying away from investing definitely is not the right thing to do, right? Again, quoting the Oracle says that it's really important to get into the investing game, and the best way to do it is to really jump into a broad-based kind of diversified index fund tracking ETF, right? And these are readily available today at very low cost. And importantly, the Oracle also says that you should buy all the time. You should buy in good times and in bad times, and especially in bad times, because you can really get a bargain for the money you're putting out. So with the saving and the investing and the effect of time, I think certainly that really helps the FIRE journey.
When did you started investing?
Okay, so I really only started about 4 years ago.
Wow.
So in March 2020, we started buying our first equities, and we're thankful that it was a time of sort of bargain prices. And since then, a lot of the equity prices have recovered. But yeah, we've continued kind of picking up equities along the way, even as the market has risen. And we've been probably net buyers over the last 4 years every year. Yeah, we've never sold a single share, and we continue to acquire, and we intend to continue to do so.
Fantastic. I like it that you are very convicted on your plans, like when you and your wife set out to be a single income family, and then setting about your FIRE journey, and even the businesses that you own, right, the stocks, that you have no intention of just buy and selling, but really believing in the business that you hold on to and continue to stay on to that. That conviction is something that I can see has really helped you and your wife being very successful on your journey.
So it's actually not us, So again, I mentioned we are know-nothing investors. We really don't know that much, right? And that's actually why we started the journey with saving, because we said that with our limited knowledge, saving is the only thing we really know how to do, and that's why we started doing it. Right? But having listened to the Oracle for many years, he believes that if you buy good companies, you should hold on to them. He definitely says and recommends that the general population should not be buying and selling, moving in and out, trying to time the market. So we just kind of follow along, So really, it's not our credit.
You don't need to reinvent the wheel,
I mean,
on a working model.
Because this is general, kind of general knowledge, right?
Yeah, it's true.
The key is on the execution bit. You have to follow through, and you have to really convince yourself that what you own is good, and therefore don't be jumping in and out. And thankfully we've managed to do so over the last 4 or 5 years.
The amazing thing is how you and your wife can find alignment in running together on this, this financial path. Can you share more about how do you all, come to co-decisions on all these things that led to the success of being financially independent?
Sure. Yeah, my wife was never a natural saver. So she's always the live in the moment, spend on the things that I like. She's not spendthrift, but she's in the moment kind of person, a free spirit, and that's good until it came to this idea of becoming a single income family and really asking her to change her ways to become a saver, So it's been a gradual process, right? In the beginning, we set out this broad-based kind of goal, and she agreed to it. And to her credit, she actually started changing, leaning towards becoming a saver over time. And she's done a great job, right? So I think that has led to a lot of the accumulation happening quite quickly, right? Because if you have one person kind of doing it, it's quite difficult. But if you have two people, and we were dual income for many years, right? You can really accelerate the process. Now, she also has no interest in finance. So whatever we are talking about now, financial literacy, financial education, she has no interest and no clue, right? So therefore, it's also to her credit that she said to me that I should handle this entire thing, and she would just be a bystander. So although she really just curbed her buying kind of tendencies, and essentially left most of the decisions to me, and so it's kind of worked out.
But she gives you her blessing for you to take charge of a lot of important financial decisions, and she goes along with it.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important dynamics between a husband and wife, so that the whole ship can move together.
Yeah.
Right? Otherwise, it's like if you got one oar on this side, one oar on this side, and going in different direction, right? It gets harder to hit the goals, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's personality as well. Some men and women, may not want to kind of give up control over the family finances, right? Say, hey, I hand you complete control over this thing.
Yeah.
Not everyone wants or is able to do that, right? So thankfully, my wife has a more easygoing kind of personality, and that has allowed her to really do that, without being upset at anything, right? Because I can imagine a couple who are both kind of wanting control, and then it might have some conflict, But I do generally agree that, broadly speaking, very important for a couple to be aligned, in terms of financial values, right? Because if your values are different, then over a 10-15 year period, very likely you're going to have a lot of quarrels, And I feel that life is already kind of difficult. There's a lot of curveballs, there's a lot of challenges that come up, and if you really throw in financial misalignment between husband and wife, then it'll be so much more difficult. So I think important to find a spouse that really aligns with you right from the beginning, and then that really helps the journey along as well.
Absolutely. I'd like to talk to you about time freedom.
Sure.
Both you and your wife has hit FIRE at the age of 37. So I also understand your wife has stopped working for the last 2 years plus. Right? You are still choosing to work in your education line, but you don't need to, right? If you don't want to. So how has that been like for your family dynamics?
Yeah, I think it's been great. I think my wife is happier. Previously, she had to juggle the kids and also juggle the work. I think it's a bit strenuous. So I think since she left her job about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I think obviously she's been a full-time caregiver, and really be able to watch all the kids' milestones as they grow, and the months pass by so quickly, right? I think another important thing that she appreciates is really the Christian values, that she can really take time to disciple the kids, really teach them on a day-to-day basis about growing up in Christ, and that has been very fulfilling for her, So it's true that we may be giving up half our household income, but I think the fulfillment that I see my wife having now, as opposed to just having a normal 9-to-5 secular job, I see that it's meaningful, So I think it's different for every family as well. Not all mothers or even fathers have the correct temperament or personality to stay at home, So I think it's important that we all kind of self-assess, think about whether that's something you really want to do, and how that ties into a person's financial stability.
How about yourself? You are choosing to work still. What are the things that perhaps is different pre-FIRE and now that you have hit FIRE in terms of you at your job?
Sure.
The dynamics, your psychology, how does that work for you?
Sure. I think, of course, it's a bit more relaxed, right? Because we always think about not having to compete with others and really scrape and fight tooth and nail for every compensation or every reward, So, give one example. If someone at your workplace is unkind to you, it's kind of easier to forgive the person, as opposed to really want to, I don't know, maybe take revenge or
maybe both of you are fighting for the same promotion,
Exactly.
And then sometimes playing dirty even,
Exactly.
you don't have to worry about all that, right?
Exactly.
Because money is not the main consideration.
Yeah.
Can I say that?
Yeah, it becomes a bit easier to say, okay, if I got passed out on this promotion and this other person got it, it's okay to not be too upset, and it's also easier to really offer sincere congratulations to the person, as opposed to if you really need kind of every dollar that comes along, then it becomes very difficult to have the kind of sincere congratulations and sincere happiness for the people around you. So I think it's really lightened the mood especially in the last year or two, I feel a bit of difference. And yeah, it's great that we can kind of continue on this journey, and it does make the work more enjoyable as well, because you can really take the smaller things and the setbacks in your stride and really kind of go with the flow a bit more. Yeah, so that really does help.
Yeah, I can totally see, the quality of your life just for yourself and your family has, based on what you just said, for the last 2 years have improved a lot, and you don't have to feel, the kind of normal pressures perhaps a lot of other families are feeling, the dependency on their full-time job because they have to work rather because they get to work. Right? So there's the difference, and I can see that about you and your wife.
Yeah, I think it's been really a big blessing, and it's a real privilege to be able to say, I can walk away from a job if I really want to. In a way, I say it with no arrogance at all. I do think that there are many hardworking families in Singapore who are doing a great job, right? And they are just trying their best. But sometimes you may not have the good fortune of and have all the things fall in place for you to be able to do that, so that's part of why we actually try to do this, because we believe that through financial education and financial literacy, you can really start your journey, and one day you can get to a point where you have a certain sense of stability and be able to choose the kind of jobs that you want to do, even if they have lower compensation and so forth. So I think that's really important, having the optionality in the things that you do and how you spend your time, right? And that ties back to the original idea of having time freedom, right? Time freedom is not all about just sitting down and doing nothing.
Yes, absolutely.
It's more about doing the things that you enjoy, do the things that you find fulfillment in, and and if it takes 15, 20 years to get there, I think as long as you get there, it's still worthwhile. So I do encourage many of your listeners and people who follow your channel to really start on their journey if they haven't already.
Yeah, guys, so these are wise words from Matthew, and time freedom is really something worth fighting for, and something that we always talk about on this channel, and it's great to have a compatriot who is echoing the same message. Matthew, you have a very inspiring story on how you got to FIRE with your wife. If one were an office worker, how would you advise them on their FIRE journey?
Yeah, I think most important thing would be to start. Right? So definitely start early, definitely start today, and really find the conviction that it's something worthwhile doing. And I think very often people have the misconception that FIRE is about saving a lot of money so that one day you can quit your job and you can go to the beach and do nothing the whole day. But it's not really that. Over the last 10, 12 years, my wife and I, we've come to realize that life has all sorts of funny curveballs, that it gives you all sorts of things that you don't expect. Some people, they want one child, but they end up having 3 or 4, right? So, and then their expenses really go up, and they are completely caught flat-footed. So I think what a stable base of finances gives you is really the optionality to handle these curveballs. For example, if things happen that you don't expect, you can make certain decisions because you understand that you have a firm base of finances. As opposed to always relying on a certain paycheck in order to pay your household expenses. So, for example, if you one day find yourself in a position where you're not happy with your boss or you're not happy with your organization, you might say that, okay, I think it's time for me to leave this boss or leave this organization, and I might take up a job that pays less, but maybe the people that I'm surrounded with make me happier, right? Or you might say that, or one day you might find a certain passion and you say, I want to go and do this thing because I'm really excited about it. But it's only 1/3 of my current pay. But you can still have the option to go and do that because it's something that you enjoy, and you don't really need the full extent of your paycheck to get by. So I think what financial stability and wealth accumulation gives you really is the option to make certain decisions that otherwise you would have not be able to make. So I think that would be the encouragement if you were a person starting, and definitely take the first step and really hold on to the conviction, and it might take a bit of time. I'm sure that one day you'll be there as well. Yeah.
For one attempting to start a FIRE journey, it would seem like a huge mountain to conquer. How would you advise somebody to begin?
Yeah. So I think there are really three pillars, that we need to tackle when we walk on this journey. The first we mentioned a bit earlier, really it's about handling your savings and your expenses, right? So of course we want to try to increase our savings and at the same time decrease our expenses. Of course that's also easier to do in your 20s than in your 30s and 40s, right? So hence the recommendation is start as early as you can. The moment you land a job, start saving. Try to save as much as you can for as long as you can. So I think that's really been the fundamental pillar in terms of my family. The second most important thing I think is also to make sure that you have proper insurance, right? Increasingly, there's a lot of news in the media that healthcare costs are increasing. There can also be funny illnesses that strike us at strange times, right? So we definitely want to have insurance, hospitalization, term insurance for death and disability, and just to ensure that the family is taken care of and you do not have to really fork out huge amounts of money if some sort of illness befalls anyone in the family. So those two are, I think, critical. And the third and actually the most difficult part really is investing. And earlier we talked about really start investing early, buy into broad-based diversified index funds and keep doing it, right? So don't sell off, don't panic when the market goes down. So I think if we can really just hold fast to these three areas, then we have a great chance at achieving some sort of wealth accumulation over 10-15 years. So that would be my general encouragement.
Wow, thank you for your words of advice. And there you go, guys. These are great words that you want to capture so that you can go about your FIRE journey. Matthew, thank you so much for coming on to this channel. I'm John, one half of the Corporate Breakout Couple, signing off. Please like and subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.